"You're still my first option," she said, applying mascara in the bathroom mirror without even glancing my way. "Still," she added, like I should be grateful for that tiny consolation. We were in the middle of another fight about priorities. I'd asked her to skip tonight's girls' night because my brother was in town, and I thought it would be nice to have a family dinner. Her answer came out as a laugh that could freeze the sun, followed by that four-word line that rearranged everything I thought our marriage was. I stood there watching her get ready. The woman I'd been married to for 6 years suddenly looked like a stranger. The red dress she slid on wasn't one I recognized. The perfume she sprayed was different than the scent she usually wore around me. Even her makeup looked like it had an agenda tonight. "First option," I echoed, letting the phrase hang. Interesting choice of words. She finally turned, irritation flashing across her face. "Don't start your jealous husband routine tonight. I'm going out with the girls, not running off to Vegas." I hadn't accused her of jealousy. I was probing that odd hierarchy she'd just mentioned. She rolled her eyes, grabbed her purse from the dresser. "You know what I meant. Don't twist my words," I thought, except I really didn't know what she meant. That was the problem. For her to say I was still her first option implied other choices were being weighed. Saying "still" meant those alternatives were active. "So what happens when I'm no longer the first option?" I asked, calm but direct. "Do I get some notification? Or just figure it out the night you don't come home?" She paused with her hand on the doorknob. For a second, I thought she might actually take the comment seriously. Instead, she flashed that patronizing smile I'd seen more and more lately. "You're being dramatic. I'm meeting the girls at that new wine bar downtown. I'll be back by midnight." "The girls?" I said, watching her face. Would those be the same girls who've been divorced twice and spend their weekends swiping on dating apps? Her jaw tightened. "My friends' relationship statuses have nothing to do with me," she snapped. Because clearly, hanging out every Friday with women who treat marriage like a subscription they can cancel anytime couldn't possibly shape her view of commitment. She opened the door but looked back once more. "You used to be fun. You used to trust me. Now you sound like my father." With that parting bob, she was gone. I heard her heels click down the hallway, the jangle of keys, the front door shutting behind her. The house fell into a quiet punctuated only by the refrigerator's hum and distant traffic. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the empty doorway. 6 years of marriage, and I'd just been demoted to first option. Not the love of her life, not a partner, not a priority. Merely her current best pick among several apparent alternatives. The worst thing wasn't the words themselves. It was how casually they slipped out, as if she'd rehearsed them. This wasn't an offhand slip or a line said in a flare of anger. It was her honest accounting of where I stood. I walked to the bathroom and looked at myself in the same mirror where she'd been doing her face minutes before. When had I become someone who could be so easily dismissed? When did I start letting myself be treated like a backup plan inside my own marriage? My phone buzzed. My brother asking what time we were meeting for dinner. I stared at the message, realizing I would have to tell him that his sister-in-law's girls' night had again taken precedence over family. I began to type an apologetic reply, then felt a different feeling building in my chest. Not resignation this time, but something sharper, like self-respect waking up after a long sleep. I deleted the draft and typed something else. Change of plans. Let's make it a guy's night. I've got some thinking to do. If I was merely her first option, maybe it was time she found out what it was like to be mine. Right now my priority was figuring out exactly what game she thought she was playing, and whether I wanted any part of it. The night was young, and I had a hunch it was about to get interesting. My brother and I ended up at Buffalo Wild Wings, which felt oddly appropriate since my marriage apparently had the substance of bar food. Over wings and beer, something I hadn't done in years happened. I spoke honestly about my relationship. "She says you're her first option," he asked, nearly choking on his drink. "Dude, that's like being her favorite backup plan." "Yeah," I said. "Apparently that's where I rank these days." As we talked, another part of me was already scheming. Call it curiosity or self-preservation, but I needed to know what those girls' nights actually looked like. They'd become a regular ritual over the last few months, always with the same vague reason about decompressing. I drove my brother back to his hotel and decided to do some casual reconnaissance. Not out of paranoia, but because first option suggested other options were actively being considered. The new wine bar she mentioned, Vintage and Vine on 5th Street, was easy to find. I drove by around 10:30 to satisfy my curiosity. Her car was parked out front along with two I recognized from her friend group, but there were also unfamiliar plates. Through the big windows, I could see it wasn't a quiet meetup of wives sipping Chardonnay and trading recipes. The place was packed and lively, clearly not just a cozy girls' night. I didn't go in, that wasn't my style, and I didn't need to see whatever was happening. But I noticed something. She'd promised to be home by midnight. At 11:45, sitting in my car, I watched her laugh and flirt with a man in an expensive suit while her friends cheered from their high-top table. I drove home and did something I probably should have months ago. I opened her laptop. Before anyone yells about privacy, she uses my Netflix, my Amazon Prime, my Spotify, and half her bills come from my checking account. If she wanted privacy, she could start paying for her own subscriptions. Her Instagram painted a pattern I'd somehow missed. The same group, different men in the background, always at bars and clubs that weren't exactly family-friendly. The real kicker was the messages with her friend who was on her second divorce. Screenshots from weeks ago all pointed to the same sentiment. Marriage is a piece of paper. You don't know what you're missing until you're out there. One thread made my blood run cold. He actually asked me to skip tonight to have dinner with his boring brother. Like seriously, I'm 28, not 88. I didn't sign up to be a housewife. I love him, but sometimes I wonder if I settled too young. There are so many successful guys at these places who actually know how to have fun. Then, 3 hours before, tonight feels different. I'm actually excited to see if he shows up. Wish me luck. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark living room as the pieces snapped into place. This wasn't about space or girl time. It was about testing waters while keeping me as the safety net. The front door clicked at 1:23 a.m. She tried to be quiet, but her heels on the hardwood banged out her arrival. I heard her hesitate in the entryway, probably surprised the living room light was on. "You're still awake," she said, appearing in the doorway, makeup smudged, hair a little messy, the guilty look that only people who've done something they know they shouldn't get. "Couldn't sleep," I said flatly. "How was your girls' night?" "Fine, good. We just talked and had a few drinks." She froze when I said Vintage and Vine. "How did you know where we went?" she asked. I hadn't said I'd driven past, but her reaction said plenty about how comfortable she was with her own story. "Right. Yeah, it was nice. Quiet, quiet," she repeated. "That's surprising. I drove past earlier and it looked busy." The color drained from her face. "You drove past? Why would you do that?" "I was dropping my brother off at his hotel. It's on the way." I stood and walked closer. "You said you'd be home by midnight. It's almost 1:30. We lost track of time. You know how it is when you're having fun." "Fun?" I let the word hang. "With the girls." "Yes, with the girls." Her voice had that defensive edge guilty people use when they know their story won't hold. I nodded slowly. "Glad you had fun." I had an interesting evening myself. Did some reading, caught up on things. She watched me, probably trying to guess how much I knew. The smart move would have been to press her then, but I'd learned something. She was lying, and she was sloppy. Give her enough rope and she'd hang herself. "I'm going to bed," she said, desperate to escape. "Good idea. You look tired." I smiled, but not the way she was used to. It was the kind of smile that signals you're thinking things you're not saying yet. As she went upstairs, I made a mental note to talk to her friend's ex-husband. If memory serves, he discovered the girls' nights were actually auditions for his replacement. Funny how patterns repeat. Funnier how predictable people get when they think they're being clever. Tomorrow would be very interesting. Saturday morning came with the overbright cheer guilty people use to overcompensate. She made pancakes, something she hadn't done in months, and kept asking if I wanted more coffee with the enthusiasm of a game show host. "You seem in a good mood," I observed, watching her flit around the kitchen like she was auditioning for Wife of the Year. "Just happy it's the weekend. We should do something fun today. Maybe the farmer's market." Interesting, last night she couldn't give up one evening for family. Today she wanted to spend quality time picking organic vegetables. The transformation was almost laughably transparent. "I was thinking we should talk about last night," I said. Her smile flickered and snapped back. "What about it?" "I told you we just had drinks." I pulled out the photo I'd taken of her car outside Vintage and Vine at 11:45 and showed her the timestamp. This is your car, right? I asked. Her face cycled through confusion, anger, calculation, then indignation. You followed me. Are you serious? I didn't follow you. I told you, I was taking my brother back to his hotel. But since we're talking about following, let's discuss your friend's dating adventures. She asked what I was talking about, so I opened her laptop, left on the kitchen counter, and pulled up the texts I'd screenshotted. She went pale as I read her own words back to her. I love him, but sometimes I wonder if I settled too young. There are so many successful guys at these places who actually know how to have fun. Your words, not mine, I said. You went through my messages, she snapped, defensive anger ramping up on cue. I pointed out she used our shared laptop and phone plan, the things I pay for, to arrange nights out and to fund them with my card. Closed laptop, leaned on the counter. But sure, lecture me on privacy violations. She opened her mouth but stopped. The victim card expired when I had receipts. Those messages don't mean anything. I was just venting. Venting. I repeated. Is that what you call telling a friend you're excited to see if a guy shows up? Then explain why you said you'd be home by midnight, but spent the evening flirting while texting about how you might have settled too young. She insisted she wasn't flirting. I showed her another photo, the one I'd taken through the bar window of her laughing and touching the suited man's arm. Technology is cruelly helpful sometimes. The fight left the room all at once. She slumped against the island like a bluff called at the poker table. It's not what it looks like, she whispered. Then tell me what it is, I said, because from where I sat it looked like she was shopping for my replacement while keeping me as backup. She stared at her hands for a long time, then looked up with tears that seemed more frustrated than remorseful. I just wanted to feel attractive again, she said. Do you know how long it's been since you looked at me the way those men do? So it was my fault. I said it not as a question, but as the direction this conversation had taken. That's not what I mean. Actually, that's exactly what you're saying. Because I don't worship you every second. You seek validation from strangers at bars. You don't understand what it's like to feel invisible in your own marriage. I laughed without humor. Invisible. When's the last time you asked about my day without checking your phone? When's the last time you started a conversation that wasn't about something you needed? When did I become the guy who just pays the bills and fixes things? She had no answer, and that silence said everything. Here's what's going to happen, I said, calm but unwavering. You're going to stop treating our marriage like it's optional. You're going to stop going out to collect phone numbers and ego boosts. And you're going to decide whether you want to be married to me or single and dating again. I'm not giving you ultimatums. I'm done being your first option while you keep other options open. If you want to feel desired, then desire the man you married or set him free to find someone who will. She wiped her eyes, but the anger simmered beneath the tears. So that's it. After 6 years you're going to throw this away over some harmless flirting. I'm not throwing anything away, I answered. You already did when you decided I was disposable enough to risk losing over attention from strangers. I stood and grabbed my keys. You've got until I get back from the gym to decide, I said. But know this, the next conversation about your girls' nights will be very different. Where are you going? She asked. To work out. Apparently I need to make sure I'm still attractive enough to compete with random guys at wine bars. I headed for the door, turned back once more. Oh, and honey, next time you want to lie about where you're going or what you're doing, maybe delete the evidence from the devices I pay for first. The look on her face told me she was starting to understand that the man who used to accept her excuses had left. What she didn't know was he wasn't coming back. The real conversation was only beginning. I was at the gym for 2 hours, pushing iron and clearing my head. When I came back inside, the smell of something cooking hit me. She was in the kitchen wearing that red dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. The one she'd always said was too dressy for every day. I made your favorite, she announced, motioning to a spread that looked like more than just a quick meal. That chicken parmesan you always ask for. The change was striking. The defensive woman I'd left behind had vanished, replaced by someone who might have been following a how to win your husband back checklist. Interesting timing, I said, grabbing a bottle of water from the fridge. I've been thinking about what you said. You're right. I haven't been the wife you deserve. I sat and watched her move around the kitchen. plating with the same meticulous care she usually saved for Instagram shots. "And what have you concluded?" I asked. "That I've been selfish. That I took you for granted." She reached across the table and took my hand. "I want to fix this. Fix us. Starting with dinner. I'll be honest." She inhaled like she was about to perform. "Yes, I've been enjoying the attention from other men, but nothing physical happened. It was fantasy, like watching a movie or reading a romance." I pulled my hand back and cut into the chicken. Fantasy. One way to label what feels like emotional cheating. "It wasn't cheating," she said quickly. "I never did anything physical. You told your divorced friend you were excited to see if a specific guy might show up," I replied. "Totally innocent fantasy." Her mask slipped a little. "How do you even know about that?" she asked. "Because you're not as discreet as you think, and because when someone says I'm their first option, I check what the other options are." She went quiet, then took on that wounded tone she uses when she needs to flip the script. "I can't believe you're punishing me for being human, having doubts in a 6-year marriage. Everyone has those thoughts, don't they?" There it was, the pivot I expected. Suddenly her emotional wandering became my fault, proof that I hadn't brought enough romance into the marriage. "Because I've been married to you 6 years and never told you you were my first option while shopping for upgrades," I said. "That's because you're a man. It's different for women. We need to feel desired. When was the last time you bought me flowers just because? When was the last time you planned a surprise date?" She was reframing her behavior as a deficiency on my part. I set my fork down. "So you've been lying about where you go and who you're with because I don't give you flowers enough," she said. "No, you're twisting me. I'm saying relationships take effort from both people." I laughed, but there was no warmth in it. Effort, like the kind I put in working 50 hours a week to pay the mortgage, support the car she drove, and fund the lifestyle she called essential. "Money isn't everything," she said. "True," I answered. "But it's convenient that you remember that only when you need to justify treating me like garbage." Her apologetic routine began to crumble, and something uglier crept through. "I never treated you like garbage," she snapped. "I made one comment about you being my first option, and you turned it into betrayal." One comment. What about the months of secret nights out, the lies, the texts about settling too young, private chats encouraging her to blow up the life we built? She rose suddenly, chair scraping the floor. Maybe she had a point. Maybe she did settle too young, she muttered. "There it is," I said softly. "The truth." "What truth?" she asked. "That this isn't about me not buying you flowers. It's about you wanting to be single, but keep the perks of being married. Security, bills paid, someone who fixes things, yet the thrill of flirting and feeling young again." Her face flushed. "You don't understand what it's like to wonder if you missed out," she countered. "You don't understand what it's like to work your ass off for someone who thinks you're expendable." We sat across from one another, the fancy meal cooling, and both of us knew this was a turning point. "So what do you want me to do?" she asked, though her tone suggested frustration rather than a sincere effort to reconcile. "You decide," I replied. "Either choose marriage or choose single life. You can't have both. If I pick you, what then? No more friends. I become a prisoner." She shot back. "If you choose me, you stop lying. Stop seeking validation from other men. Stop treating this like a negotiable thing." I stood and headed toward the doorway, uncertain she even wanted what she claimed. "What's that supposed to mean?" she demanded. I turned and said plainly that someone who truly wanted to repair things wouldn't spend the whole conversation justifying why they needed to shop around. "You're being impossible," she said. "No, I'm being clear." I made my way to the stairs. "Decide what you want." "I'm deciding too." She asked what decision I meant. Whether I wanted to stay married to someone who considered me lucky to be her first choice. I left her in the kitchen with the untouched dinner and her injured pride. Upstairs I could hear her rustling, probably texting her friend, rehearsing how I'd become unreasonable. For the first time in months, I felt like I could see the relationship with new clarity. It looked ugly. Sunday morning brought the frantic buzzing of her phone and the forced cheer guilty people use to cover what they've done. She emerged with that self-victim look and announced, "We need to talk." "I'm listening." She declared if I couldn't tolerate her social life, maybe we needed a break. I almost smiled. After everything, she wanted to make this her call. A break. She said it like a solution. "And where will you take this break? Your friend's couch? That wine bar?" Her confidence wavered. "I have options," she said. "Sure you do," I replied. Then I walked to the counter and picked up a manila folder I'd placed there earlier. Her eyes tracked the movement with growing worry. "Friday, while you were getting ready for girls' night, I had a productive conversation," I said. "With who?" she asked. "With a divorce attorney." Color left her face. "You contacted a lawyer?" I nodded. "He's handled several cases involving social media and emotional affairs. Thorough guy." I opened the folder and pulled out printed pages. "These are screenshots of your texts, Instagram posts, and other activity from the last 3 months. Lay them out chronologically and a pattern appears." She reached for the papers, but I held them back. "You'll get copies. First, let me walk you through this." I flipped to a page and read where she'd written that marriage was just a piece of paper, where she strategized meeting men at bars, where she rated guys she met. "Private conversations," she protested. "Private conversations about our marriage, which involves me," I said. I turned another page. "Your friend's ex kept records. Judges look at patterns when deciding asset division." She stared like I'd grown another head. "You're trying to scare me." "I'm trying to educate you," I replied. "While you were keeping options open, I was preparing for the possibility you'd choose them." I sat, motioning for her to sit. She stayed standing, probably thinking sitting meant admitting weakness. "Here's what else I've learned," I continued. "The house is in both our names, but I've made the mortgage payments for 4 years. Your car is financed through my credit. Your health insurance is through my job. Your gym, phone, credit cards, connected to my income." "What are you saying?" she whispered. "That while you treated me like a backup plan, you should consider life without me as your financial plan." She finally sat, pale. "You're threatening me," she accused. "I'm presenting facts," I replied. "You want a break? Fine. But breaks work both ways. No joint checking, no cards I cover, no insurance, no house I maintain." "You can't cut me off," she said. "I can. We have no kids and no joint debts beyond the mortgage. My lawyer says separating finances during a trial separation is common." I slid another paper across. I opened a new checking account. "My paycheck goes there starting tomorrow. I told insurance to remove you next month." "This is insane. You're blowing up our life over texts." "No, you blew up our life when you decided I wasn't enough. I'm responding appropriately to your choice." She sat very still, then shifted into calculation. "What if I say I'm sorry? What if I promise to stop going out with the girls?" "You're missing the point," I said. "The point is you showed who you are, someone who lies, seeks strangers' validation, treats this marriage as optional. Promises don't change that." Her tears turned into real panic. "I never meant for this," she sobbed. "Maybe not," I allowed, "but it happened and now we live with the consequences." I gathered the papers. "You wanted a break," I said. "Consider this your chance. Have the freedom you crave, date, flirt, live the life you think you missed, but without the benefits of being married to me. Welcome back to being single." I began up the stairs, but she called out, "What if I don't want a break? What if I want to work on us?" I turned. "Then prove it," I said. "Not with words or dinners, but with real, sustained change. Cut contact with the friend who encouraged you to blow up our life. Be transparent about where you go and who you're with. Commit to counseling with someone who doesn't minimize emotional affairs as harmless fantasies. Do that, and maybe we can talk about saving what's left. But I'm not coming from desperation anymore. Be all in or don't be in at all. No backup plans, no exit strategies. I left her at the kitchen table with the evidence spread out. For the first time in months, I felt in control of my life. The ball was in her court. Would she play it or double down on her victim story until nothing remained to salvage? 3 weeks later, I was in my home office when she knocked. Actually knocked, not barged in like before. That small, cautious gesture told me everything about how things had shifted. "Can we talk?" she asked, looking tired, maybe desperate. The confidence from her girls' nights had drained. "I'm listening." She told me she ended her friendship with that woman, blocked her everywhere. I nodded but stayed silent. Words had become cheap. She said she'd cancelled her social media. "Why?" I asked. "Because you were right. I used it for attention from other men, and that wasn't fair." She sat across from me like a student facing the principal. "I've been seeing a therapist," she said. "She's helping me understand why I needed validation." "And what have you learned?" I asked. "That I was scared," she answered. "Scared of getting older, of missing out. Scared I'd made the wrong choice marrying so young." She paused. Now I realized the wrong choice wasn't marrying young. It was almost throwing away the best thing in my life because I was too immature to appreciate it. I watched her closely, genuine, but I'd been deceived before. "What about the wine bar guy?" I asked. Her cheeks colored. Nothing happened. He asked for my number and I almost gave it, but I didn't. I never went back. "Almost doesn't mean much," I said. "But the fact you considered it shows how lost you were." I walked to the window and looked over our yard where we'd once talked about planting a garden. The real question was whether she'd changed or was only terrified of losing a comfortable life. "It's both," she said softly. "I'm scared of losing this life, but not because of the house. Because I'm scared of losing you." "Then prove it," I said. "Understand this isn't about forgiveness or second chances alone. It's about building something new. The marriage we had is over. If we try again, it must be with different people and different expectations." She nodded, tears forming. "I want to try. I want to be that person." "We'll see," I answered. "But I'm not the same man who accepted being taken for granted. I won't tolerate lies, games, or divided loyalty." "I know," she said. "If I ever make you feel like you're competing with strangers in bars again, this is over." "It won't happen," she promised. 6 months later, I can say she's kept her word so far. Our marriage isn't the same. It's more honest, more direct, and yes, more fragile. But it's real. She learned that being someone's first option isn't a privilege to squander. And I learned that sometimes you have to risk everything to save what actually matters. The irony of becoming someone's last option is that it can make them realize you might have been their best option all along. Some people learn that in time, others don't. I'm glad she figured it out, and even more glad I realized I deserved better than being a backup plan. These days I'm nobody's first option. I'm their only option, and that difference matters. Our story has come to an end. If you made it this far, consider subscribing to our channel. It helps us a lot. I picked 2 other videos I think you'll like. Click through and I'll see you in the next story. See you soon.